We know it's been a minute, but guess what, everybody? We're back. It's time for Kind of Funny's Scream in Review. As always, I'm Tim Geddes, joined by It's Christmas in September, Joey Noel.
It's so dumb that when you Google milk mommy, the first 4 things are Kevin, and then it's like actual like breastfeeding things.
You don't
I
have
just
to.
feel bad.
You don't have to bring that up. You don't have to bring that
I
up.
also put a great picture in the Discord general for you all to experience, because that's where I think the real origin's from. So sorry for disrailing this from the beginning, Tim.
Oh my God,
you gotta love it. Isn't it true, producer/seducer Nick Scarpino?
It is true. And Kevin was trying to offload this on me, like I'm the milk mommy, but I do believe this is how it started. Was that he took that picture and then someone photoshopped it into this, and now he's the milk mommy. And I do want to say that this is the kind of stuff we're putting into the world. It will not remember us fondly.
No, it will not. But you know who I will always remember fondly? Both James and Elise Willems. How are you guys doing?
Great. We were gonna give Kevin a really cool new nickname, Kevlar, but then of course, Milk Mommy comes from behind to take the lead once
It
again.
just rolls off the tongue, right?
It does.
Lactose-filled phoenix rising from the ashes.
Can Milk Mommy process lactose? I don't even know.
I don't know.
No, he can't. That's
You'd
the
be
greatest
shocked
part.
to know that Kevin Coelho, I've known him since I was 4 years old, and
Loves
he
it, though.
the entire time has in fact been lactose intolerant, but that has not stopped him from loving milkshakes more than any other human being I have ever met. And I've once seen him, I want to say once just to like keep it PG here,
nice,
but
yeah.
I've once seen him down an entire 2-gallon chocolate milk.
It was,
So-
Wow.
It was 1 gallon, Tim. It was 1 gallon, and I did it for science purposes. Someone said it was impossible. I proved them wrong.
Well, hold on. The chocolate milk. I think you're talking about the milk gallon challenge, right?
That's right.
I don't think chocolate milk qualifies scientifically. Something about what they add to the chocolate milk makes that the scientific reaction isn't going to take place. I know what you're referring to because I also participated in said experiment.
Did you not?
Wait.
Were you not able to down the milk?
I was an observer. It was whole milk,
it.
and
yeah,
neither participants were able to complete the
You
task.
can't do cold.
It's like within 10 minutes or something, right?
Yeah, it's
Something
too
you
much
throw up.
too much milk, and the
Yeah.
body thinks it's getting poisoned or something.
I have to use the bathroom just from listening to this conversation. That's how
I
poor
still
my
feel pretty
digestion
confident I
is.
could do it.
Yeah, wait, I want some clarification here because I think I got something wrong. Is the normal milk in the plastic, like
It's a
container
gallon.
thing, the big
It's a
one? That's
gallon,
1
yeah.
gallon. Okay, yeah, so it was 1 gallon.
That is one
And
gallon.
yeah, and Kev took it down, but it wasn't in 10 minutes. Like Kev had a whole day, but he did it. He
That's
did
not
it in
true. I
that
did
day.
not. Tim, we were walking back from 7-Eleven. It was less than 20 minutes.
Walking? You know what? Yeah, there's a lot here.
And I had
Doesn't
a
matter.
lot of mini donuts. They were very good.
There's so much lore, so much
I know,
Kevin
this is
lore.
wild.
So much Kevin lore. Gotta love Milk Dud, everybody. But whatever. This is Kind of Funny Scream in Review, where each and every week we are going to rank and review the Scream movies. It's very, very exciting stuff. James and Lise will be joining us for all of them. And I am pleased to announce that after this, we're going to take a short break to pop over back to the Venom in Review universe, where we will rewatch Venom 1 to lead into Get Hyped for Venom Let There Be Carnage. I can't wait, personally. And then after that, we're going to return with James and Elise for Halloween in Review. Chris Anka will be joining us for that as well. I'm very, very excited about that. We're getting spooky because it's spooky season. You can get the show on youtube.com/kindoffunny or roosterteeth.com. If you want to get it as a podcast, just search your favorite podcast service for Kind of Funny in Review, and we'll be right there for you. If you want to get the show ad-free, and if you want to watch live as we record it, you got to go to patreon.com/kindoffunny, just like our Patreon producers, Molecule and the Kind of Funny Destiny 2 PC clan have done. We appreciate you all so very, very much. And because you are a supporter over on Patreon, you will not have to listen to our sponsor reads later for HBO Max and Rooster Teeth's The Last Laugh Season 2, hosted by one Elise Willems. That's exciting
Wow.
stuff.
That's fun.
What a fun, you're going to want to hear that.
They're
ad
cutting-
read.
Co-hosted.
They're cutting corners on the only promotion we get to do for that show.
Well, check out the ad either way because you want to support the homies. But that is neither here nor there. Today we are talking about Scream 2, or as it was originally filmed as until Miramax said no, Scream, the sequel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Which I kind of love. I kind of
Mhm.
wish they went with it, but hey, Movie Max, nah, they don't like fun. This had a runtime of 2 hours on the dot. It was released on December 12th, 1997, pretty much exactly a year later after the first one. It was originally scheduled to open alongside Tomorrow Never Dies and Titanic, but both of those movies shifted their dates to not be pitted against this. Isn't that
Wow.
wild to think
Wow.
about?
Unreal.
It says something about the power of Scream.
Mm-hmm. And powerful it was, a budget of 24 million and a box office return of 172 million, which is just a couple million short of the first movie. And that's just a wild success across the board for both of them. So that's really cool. Once again, it was directed by Wes Craven, but some fun facts here. James teased before the show that he has one fun fact that he's extremely excited to share.
Nick also had a really fun fact.
Don't
though,
give
I
this to
think.
Nick.
So I'm excited. So I don't know which one it is, because the fun fact I'm excited about is that Wes Craven, not the only director in this movie.
Oh.
Robert Rodriguez is also credited as a
wow.
director because
Interesting.
hit me with it, Elise.
I read this. No, please hit me, Tim.
I'm gonna hit you with it. He directed Stab, the movie within a movie.
That's
No
awesome.
way.
That is
Yeah.
That's
So,
incredible.
That's
pretty
super
cool. And he also directed the Sydney and Billy scene and the Heather Graham scene. So pretty cool. He had a couple moments in here, but I love the idea of the movie in a movie being directed by somebody else. It's just a
great.
lot of fun stuff. Elise, what did you have for? Oh no, that was it. That was it.
That
James.
was it. But I have other fun facts, I guess. But you have the funnest.
This is. Do we want to just jump right in with fun
Jump into
facts?
it. I want to know what it is.
I love fun.
I think you know what it is, Nick. It's
Okay.
that not only are there more than one directors, but there's the music is not just by Marco Beltrami. In fact, Hans Zimmer is credited as a composer on this because,
Why
and
is
this is
that?
what I love about it.
It's so weird.
This is what I love.
That milk you got there? What is that?
Everyone's favorite incompetent deputy returns in this film, Dewey. Okay?
Yeah.
He just can hang out on campus. And when he shows up, he's heralded by this really good, catchy
unique.
theme. It's a
Very unique.
really, but it's so,
twang.
it's like, yeah, it almost solidifies him as this like cowboy type, but like sympathetic cowboy type. And I always remember it being very, very catchy. It's like, oh gosh, yeah, Dewey's theme. Like you don't remember any of the rest of the score really,
Nope.
but Dewey's
Dewey's
theme
theme.
makes perfect sense. And the reason it makes perfect sense is because they stole it from Broken Arrow.
Yep.
Well, they
That
did
is
steal it.
incredible.
It is
They-
literally the theme from fucking a Christian Slater, John Travolta, and Samantha Mathis classics. Directed by what's his name?
John Woo, right?
John fucking Woo.
John Woo.
It was temp. It was temp audio.
They were putting together the film and they needed something temp, so they threw this score in, and then they just let people watch this unfinished version of the film, and in the screenings people were like, I like this, I like that, really liked that Dewey theme. For some reason it kept coming back at all the pre-screenings that they were doing, that people were like, love that Dewey theme though, it just really gets something about it, it's real catchy. So then they ended up having to pay Hans Zimmer to include it in the film, and he's credited as having composed part of the score.
So weird though, because I was like, this is the weird, because you guys know I'm a strange human being, right? We can all admit this. I'm not what we would call typically normal. But I get to that part. I watched this movie yesterday, and I get to that part, and I'm like, why do I know that music? And then I'm like, it dawns on me, it clicks that it's from Broken Arrow, and I'm like, there's no fucking way this is the same music from Broken Arrow. Maybe I'm just misremembering it, like, just the themes are slightly, very, very close. Maybe they bit off each other. And when I Googled it, like, yep, no, it's Broken Arrow. It's just the same music. Very weird.
When you know, you can't not hear it.
It's
like
strange.
It doesn't make any sense. If you're just watching it, it feels invisible because you're like, oh yeah, it's kind of familiar. But when you know, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
And Broken Arrow had only come out like a year before, so it's not like it was like an homage or anything. They just were like, oh, this is good.
It's a cool song.
Tim, do you have any context for what Broken Arrow is?
I unfortunately, Nick, do not.
Wow, Nick.
Wowie,
We gotta watch some Broken Arrow.
So John Woo back in the day broke onto the scene with a few movies, one of which I believe was his first one was Hard Target, which broke him in the States. Then he went on to do Broken Arrow. Maybe Face Off first and then Broken Arrow. And Broken Arrow is a very strange action movie starring Christian Slater versus John Travolta. And I think John Travolta stole a nuclear missile or something or bomb. And
There's a
Christian
stealth.
Slater has to get him back.
It wasn't it a stealth plane called the Broken Arrow that had a test nuke in
It's
it.
probably an homage to the Canadian Avro Arrow that never actually flew.
Yes.
There's a whole thing.
Yes.
How deep does this rabbit hole
Howie
go?
Long is also in it, if I recall. Howie Long is in it.
Howie Long is in it. That's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love me some Broken Arrow.
Indeed. Scream 2 was once again written by Kevin Williamson, who this might go down another rabbit hole path, but created Dawson's Creek, Scream, and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like we said last time on In Review, the script for this movie was essentially done with the script for Scream 1. Like he was ready to go. He knew what he wanted this to be. So that's kind of cool. And this movie easily passes the Bechdel test, which is a measurement of the representation of women in fiction, asking whether a work features at least two women who speak to each other about something other than a man. There's a whole bunch of examples throughout the entire movie. So good for you, Scream 2. You did it. Before we move on with more stuff, I want to know what everyone thought. Joey Noel, let's start with you. What'd you think of Scream 2?
So I was always touch and go on if I'd actually seen Scream 2 in the amalgamation of bits and pieces I'd seen. Definitely not. Definitely was thinking of Scream, I think 3, where they actually shoot
they make the
movie. Yeah. So I hadn't seen this at all. So I was pleasantly surprised because I had no idea about anything going into it. Jerry O'Connell, what a gem.
What a gem.
What a gem.
The homie.
The homie. Not to mention that like the scene where he's singing in the cafeteria seems like the most like, we're going to write this just because it's Jerry O'Connell.
Joey,
He got hired because of that.
Do you think that that was they were like, this is going to be our Top Gun? Like Jerry O'Connell singing in the people are going to look at that like they look at Tom Cruise singing
Yes,
in that.
absolutely.
Yeah,
100%.
no joke. The auditions for that role were that scene, him singing that song, and all him singing that song. They're like, he nailed it, so he got the job for that. So good for him.
Incredible. And he does play such like a good like. Would they retread that old ground again and have it be the boyfriend? Like he's just unsettling enough, and like kind of just has that frenetic energy.
Yeah, but
that I thought was really fun.
If Jerry O'Connell was like, we were all wrong about him being the killer, I don't want to be right.
True. Yeah, I thought it was really fun. I think the casting that they bring in is really fun. Timothy Oliphant is so good and also has that Skeet Ulrich like energy, but
we got Sarah Michelle
obviously not
Gellar in this.
I know.
Randomly.
The Joshua, which makes sense with her and Joshua Jackson being cast in this with the Kevin Williamson connection.
Yes. And she had just made like I Know What You Did Last Summer with him.
Yeah. So I thought it was really fun. I'm surprised. I love that they get so meta about everything in that whole like film discussion class about like sequels and how does it work and they're never the same. And I don't know. I think this is a really, really fun and very smart series that I just was not expecting considering like Scary Movie and stuff were like based on the resurgence of all of these movies. I'm like, oh, you guys aren't giving that enough credit for the parody that it kind of devolved into.
Totally. James, what do you think?
I mean, I listen, you give me any of these movies. I think I can say confidently that it's not as good as the first one. Like I feel like the first one was, we talked about it here. It was pretty revolutionary where like it basically revived it. But this one, it is, as much as it tries to take on like the tropes of sequels, it is still it does suffer a lot from some of the sequel things that it is pointing out. But it's just so much fun. Like it's just fun. Like I like seeing these characters stomping around. We'll get to it, but I like that it isn't precious with some of the people that are in the franchise. Like it's like, oh yeah, it was just because you're a returning character doesn't mean you're safe, kind of thing. And it almost, because again, we're gonna get to Scream 3. Scream 3 is almost like we've transitioned into full cartoon Like the difference between Beetlejuice the movie and Beetlejuice the Saturday morning cartoon show. You're like, how did that happen?
How did we get there?
Scream 2 is the transition into how we get to Scream 3, which I think is just absolutely ridiculous. But I don't know. It may be a little longer than it needs to be. I think you could cut probably like 15 minutes out of this movie and make it a little bit tighter. But I enjoy it. Like I'll just watch it every time. And
I'm similar to where you're at with it, but I feel a little bit more definitively on this is not nearly as good as the first one. It is still a blast to watch, and I love all the cast additions they have. But I think that the conceit of the movie and like the whole idea of it kind of being we're aware it's a sequel, so let's do something cool with it. I don't think that what they did ever transcended it being a sequel, kind of like you're saying, in the way that the first movie truly did something special and like truly had a lot going for it, that it is a good movie. I can't tell myself that Scream 2 is a good movie. That doesn't mean it's not an enjoyable movie, because it definitely is. And there's so much in this that like it's just so fun with the way they play with tropes and with what we expect, and when they kind of deliver the trope exactly how we expect it, versus times they do something that is completely different, or times they do something that's just slightly different that is weird as hell, but it's like it keeps you on your toes. And like Joey was saying, till the end, you're still kind of convinced that Jerry O'Connell's the killer. And like, I think that that's cool that the movie does a good job of really making us question like what it is we're watching. I just think that overall, especially the thing that makes me so happy about this movie is the opening scene of them in the theater watching Stab. Like the fact that the second movie in this franchise would already just jump to, all right, the first one was kind of meta, we're going all in on the metaverse of this. Like that is so rad to me. And I also love that in any world, people are going into a brand new IP for a horror movie and are losing their minds on an extent that like even Endgame could never get, where people are getting killed on screen and the whole theater is standing up like, yeah. You're just like, holy
Somehow
shit.
it's like a Rocky Port horror picture, like screening.
But
That was like my experience watching Scream 4. Was people were like nuts in my screening. We were all shouting at it. It was great. Sorry, Nick, were you gonna say something?
Oh no. I just love that they're like all the costumes and all that stuff. Like people are just already, before they even walk into the movie theater, just bought all in on the mask, and it all sort of works on that level.
That's a great marketing team right there.
Hell yeah, they are. They caught the wave, as they say down in LA. We caught the wave.
Yeah, that's what we say.
What do you think of Scream 2?
I mean, echoing all your sentiments, really fun movie. Not nearly as good, or it'll never hit that classic status that the first one does. And the first one just did something very unique and was very stylized. This one almost feels like it's like, let's make a more entertaining movie by a different director, which is weird that it's still Wes Craven, but it does feel like the difference between Speed 1 and Speed 2, where you're like, Speed 2 is still fun, but like definitely the first director was like, I don't know if I got what they were going for in the first movie. Maybe I didn't even watch it. Doesn't matter. It's absurd and it's super fun, and I actually had a lot more fun watching it the second time around than the first time I watched it, because I think the expectation was like, how are you going to outdo the classicness of Scream 1? And I don't think they necessarily tried. I think they just were like, we're going to lean way more into the meta nature of all this stuff. We're going to lean way more into the self-referential references. And I found myself toward the end of it, I know it's a lot more slapsticky, but I found myself toward the end of it being like, I would actually watch Stab if they made this movie. If they remade Scream with a different cast and called it Stab, I would actually, and like with Tori Spelling as Nev Campbell, I would consider watching this movie.
And the fun fact there is that was referenced in the first movie when she said like, oh, if they make a movie out of this, who's going to play me? Tori Spelling. And then she was in this, which is just
amazing, right?
Tori Spelling also is like a side character in Scary Movie 2.
She's
oh my gosh.
Someone say
Tori Spelling will say yes
Beverly Hills
to
90210.
anything. There you go. Yeah, nice.
Elise, what'd you think?
Okay, so I don't think I'm going to be as glowing maybe as everybody.
Dang.
And I owned the first 3 Scream movies on VHS, and I would rewatch them all the time. And I would say 2 is the one that I would watch the least. And I think that's because, to me, the first one nailed it. The third one goes into more camp territory. It's like way over the top, and I appreciated that more. I think 2, while very self-aware, dials it back for me a little bit in the fun factor. And I still really enjoy it a lot. But there's just stuff where like, and you'll probably all feel differently because I know you guys are ragging on him in the first one, but Dewey's less like goofy in this one. Like
Yeah.
he's that goofy bumbling cop. In this, he's just kind of like always mad at Gale. Like there's elements
So
where
jaded, yeah.
yeah, brr, 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 brr.
Dope theme
There's,
song. So
elements where I'm like, I'm not having like as much fun with this movie, though I do like really appreciate it and get excited for certain moments. You know, Tim, you pointed to, and everyone I think always points to the fact that Kevin Williamson had like he had this, you know, the plan for the 3 movies. But the lore that everybody talks about is how the script for Scream 2 got leaked and they had to completely change who the killers were. I think originally it was supposed to be Billy Loomis's mom, Derek, which is Jerry O'Connell, and then her roommate, who I forget the roommate's name. I know the actress's name is Elise because I was
Haley?
like, oh, yeah, maybe Haley.
Her name, yeah.
I think that was originally the thing. It got leaked. They had to pivot, and that might be why they do such a good job of making it feel like Jerry O'Connell's the decoy in it, because like those things would have been alluded to anyway. I have no idea. All conjecture on my part. However, it's still like super solid and fun to watch, and I
I mean,
so many great moments. The intro is an amazing intro. The
So
like.
good.
I can't tell you when I was younger, the whispering in the bathroom stall used to always creep me out. We'll get to it, but
It's one of those things though, like I can't get the scary movie
Yep.
out of my brain.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
impossible.
Yeah.
Every time I watch it, I'm like,
Yep.
oh god, that just ruins this scene completely.
Oh God. All right. Well, with that, let's get to the plot.
Please tell us the story. Hey, please tell us that story. It's Scream 2. And we are at the Rialto Theater, which I think is a real theater, but I've never been to. Have you guys ever seen a movie there?
I don't know.
It's real, right?
I don't know offhand.
Oh,
It's all right.
We have.
In my brain, I'm like, this whole thing happens in LA, but then I realized we don't know where this happens, do
It
we?
doesn't. I don't think it does. It's
No,
in
not at
college. They
all.
go to college somewhere, right?
I
Yeah.
think it's real because
Apparently
I've seen
there's
this
more-
movie.
It was
It's the other side
filmed
of-
in a beautiful little Vista Theater named Vista Theater
Oh,
in
the
Sunset
Vista.
Drive in Hollywood.
That's Quentin Tarantino's theater now? No, he's the Buena Vista.
That's probably
Continue.
right.
Anyway, sorry.
Either way, Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett, not Smith yet, are heading to the hottest new movie in town, and it's called Stab. And right off the bat, the movie is self-aware, and they have a great little dialogue here. They're walking in talking about it, and she says the horror genre is historical for excluding the African American element, and then they make fun of Sandra Bullock, but that's clearly because, guys, they clearly haven't seen her star yet in The Heat, which is the greatest comedy ever made.
God.
Exactly.
It's
I know what you're
shocking
thinking.
how often you are able to bring this.
I know
movie
what you're
up.
thinking, James. When is the last time you watched The Heat, Nick? Maybe it's just been too long, and you have fond memories of a movie you saw years ago. The answer is 2 days ago. I watched it over the weekend. It's free with
course.
commercials. The
You
studio's
watched
handed
it with commercials?
That means
You're a
at some
40-year-old
point,
man.
yeah. At some point, the
Watching
movie
Heat with
ended.
commercials.
The movie ended, and then they said we're gonna give you an opportunity to stop watching The Heat, and you said, "Noted, I will remain."
Oh, Nick, you must have meant that you watched Heat.
No. I did watch the critically acclaimed movie, The Heat. I've seen that a couple times. Yes.
What about Red Heat?
Red Heat also great. No, what I
Okay.
like, what I
Heat of
keep
the
getting
night.
back to though is what Tim and I refer to as the 1-2 punch of Melissa McCarthy and Sandra Bullock as a comedy team for the ages.
Okay.
There's this great part where they
Mm.
talk about how she buys coffee filters and uses them as toilet paper because they're pretty much the same thing.
Is that cheaper? What's the joke?
Cinema.
I don't know, but it makes me giggle every single time. Anyway, the studio is handing out souvenir costumes and like fake blades that are like glow in the dark. As Phil and Maureen enter the lobby, their names will be important later during a chalkboard scene that makes absolutely no sense. They open the doors to the theater, and what, Elise, do we hear as the word "stab" is projected on the screen before them?
Oh, I don't know. What do we hear? Is this a trick question?
No, it's not a trick question at all. It's just the
Screams?
song that, if memory serves me correctly, is constantly playing in the Williams' household.
Oh, yeah, Red
in
Right
October.
Hand.
There it is, right there. And
Yeah.
they use it very, very liberally in this movie. It's just that theme and Broken Arrow over and over
Travesty.
again.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a random Dave Matthews Band song, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later because I want to get y'all's perspective on this whole DMB
Dave Matthews Band.
bullshit.
DMBS is more like it.
Exactly, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fucking Google that to Greg over to Greg.
DMB.
Ship it. The movie starts, and it's a recreation of the Drew Barrymore scene from Scream 1, only with Heather Graham instead, which is just great. Maureen jacks Phil for some money so she can go get popcorn and yuck, a Pepsi. And two other theater goers are like, this movie is really in poor taste because it's based on real events, just in case you, for some reason, didn't watch Scream 1. And you're like, what the fuck is going on right now? Then Phil comes out of a broom closet and scares Maureen, which kind of turns him on. Maureen heads back in to watch Heather Graham burn the popcorn as Phil heads to the men's room to urinate. The urinals are filled with dudes dressed as Ghostface costumes, so Phil decides to head to one of the stalls so he can creepily listen into a weird conversation happening in the stall next to him.
Elise Willems from
Yes.
Funhouse.
Would you ever think it's acceptable to hide in a broom closet at a movie theater?
No. No.
There's a lot. I mean, it was a different time with this.
It
Where it's
was
like,
this
can you
pre
imagine?
9/11.
Yeah, I mean, like all of that, where it's like a movie theater being like, oh yeah, fuck it.
Yeah.
All of you have fake knives and wear
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
this guy that in real life in the last year killed people. No way.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
that would not
no.
apply today.
No.
There's no way
No.
AMC was like, this is something we should allow to happen in our theater.
Not after like Dark Knight shit and stuff like that.
Absolutely
Like
not.
no
Yeah.
fucking way.
Absolutely not. Of course, he stops to creepily listen to a little conversation. The guy's like, ha 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 ha. Can you hear that, Tim?
Yeah, unfortunately, Nick, I can't.
So hoping
Right,
the
and he's like,
mic gate would
"Ooh,
work
this is
on that
turning
one.
me on," because apparently Phil is just a horn dog,
Really?
and he is willing to do whatever it takes to get it on.
Yeah.
And he's repaid for that by getting a knife right through his fucking ear.
Mm-hmm.
And
Not
this
a
is
That's
penis.
brutal.
Not a penis. Like
not a penis, not
Like
a
you would
penis.
think.
Which, come on, when you watch this, doesn't Party be like, was this
It-
the one with the penis?
yeah, it feels like Scream 2 is the parody. Right? When you watch Scary Movie, you know, it seemed the joke would be that a knife comes through, but when you find a hole in a stall door, a penis should. So I
think-
mean, that's just the kind of things you're going to get when you follow this up. You watch one, then you immediately watch the other, like we've been doing. Where you watch a Scream and then Scary Movie, and then Scream 2, and then Scary Movie 2.
It's
Yeah.
a perfect sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, then Ghostface returns to the theater and sits next to Maureen, but he's dressed as Phil. And then she quickly realizes, she's like, you're covered in blood. That's weird. And then the whole theater watches as on screen Casey gets stabbed while Maureen gets stabbed right in front of them all. But they don't think I guess they think this is a publicity stunt because as she gets stabbed a bunch in front of them, then she walks up. She somehow musters the energy to walk onto the stage and then scream with all her might and then collapse dead.
Yeah.
And people
A
are
little
like,
dramatic.
this
Guttural.
movie fucking rocks.
A little dramatic.
Like, think about that. And then bang, we get Scream 2, Revenge of Ghostface. I put that subtitle in there, but we get that kind of splashed. And then we're into some really bad 90s songs. As we catch up with Sydney, she gets another call from Ghostface, and he's like, hello, Sydney. But it's not Ghostface, actually. It's someone named Corey Gillis, because she has one of those cool little things that tells you who's calling. And he's like, oh no, my mom's going to be so mad. She goes, hot flash, Corey. Prank calls her a criminal offense. Criminal code 90210 or whatever it is. And he's like, oh no, my mom's going to be so mad. So he hangs up. And then we get introduced to Hallie, who's Sydney's roommate. And she's
Your
like,
Ghostface impression is like shockingly good.
Joe, I want you to close your eyes.
Okay.
Close your eyes right now.
They're closed.
Hello, Joey. Let's get talking.
It's almost like the Joker, though. Like it has like
Maybe I take back my thing. You might need to rework that just a little bit.
Nick, what if it was Daniel LaRusso calling Joey?
Hey, Mr. Miyagi.
Thank you. Back to the plot.
I'm sorry, guys. I make myself laugh. Let's see. We get to meet her roommate, and Haley's like, "Is it time to change our number again?" But she goes, "Nah, it's opening weekend. It'll all die down." And really taking all this stuff in stride, trying to find a balance in her life. She watches an interview with Cotton Weary, played by Liev Schreiber, who is having a tough time re-entering society after being exonerated of the crime of murder.
I don't love this. This is another inspired casting that I didn't expect. And on top of that, like bringing the guy that was like supposed to be the killer back to be part of this whole plot and the plot they give him, pretty cool, pretty interesting. Maybe a little too real of him trying to like become famous from it all. It's like, but for this being in 1997, I'm like, this is actually a pretty inspired plot for this character.
Like considering like the minimal throwaway part he has in the first one, you would never expect that like now this guy is back in this pivotal way. And also, I guess in that fabled leaked script, he was supposed to have a much bigger part in the ending too. Like maybe we talk about that at the end.
It's pretty integral, but
yeah.
Was he? Oh, interesting. We can talk about it now. What was he supposed to do?
I guess it was supposed to, and this is all like obviously I read this on the internet, so who knows, but he was supposed to like it was supposed to come down to like he and Sydney battling it out because he's actually feels pretty raw about like his life getting ruined by the events of things. And then both of them like collapse in a bloody heap and die or something. Like I don't know.
okay.
Wow.
All right.
Interesting.
Well,
That's rewriting is rewriting.
But he's back and we love him now.
This movie is written 3 times. Let's see. Haley reminds Sydney they have a sorority party to go to that night, and Sydney's like, "I gotta back out of this." But then Haley's like, "Listen, just lower the walls for a few days. This self-induced isolation is not healthy." And then a random Jodie Foster lookalike runs up and pledges allegiance to the flag and tells Haley and Sydney to check the news. And then that Marine and Phil were killed, and Sydney's like, "Oh my god, I don't know who those people are," but she's got to find Randy, and she's like, "I think Randy's in his film theory class right now."
So,
of course,
question real quick. How did you guys feel? I think one of the shortcomings for me in this movie is Sydney herself.
100%.
She's so defensive. Like the Sydney of the first movie is justifiably trying to process the trauma that happened in her life, the very violent trauma, and that makes sense for a lot of her distance. In this, she is. I think they're going for like the Ripley, like becoming a badass kind of thing, but something about her, what they gave her in this felt more like she just kind of was like a wet blanket most of the time. And a lot of this film, I think, working against it is when it was mostly Sydney off doing her own thing, and then everyone who was actually fun together doing something else. And anytime it would go back to Sydney, I'd be like, I don't care about your play. Like I don't care about the things they're dealing with right now. It is not as fun as watching them go and like deal with all the stuff, you know. So that was just something I noticed as I was watching it. I was like, I don't really like what they did with her here.
like thinking about that, you're spot on, because I think about the scenes that I like the most in this, and it's definitely the Gail, Dewey, Randy, like them running around trying to solve the murder, like Scooby Doo. And then they get to the part where like the guy's like, I don't have an understudy. I was like, why would you give a fuck about this play right now? Like, I would get, first off, if any of this shit started happening to me, I'd be like, Tim,
Fuck out of there.
I'm coming over to the studio right now. We're gonna hunker down. Kevin, get all the guns, right? And then you guys go there, and I am not there. I'm in fucking Italy or some other place that you've never even heard of before.
Smart.
And I'm not telling anyone where I'm going because it's the 90s. There's no cell phones. There's no Twitter. No one's gonna know.
Yeah, you just smoke your cigarette right onto the plane.
Yeah.
Also, you think her dad would be like, you need
Come
to
home.
leave school.
Yes.
No, well, he's a puss.
Gallivanting
We determined the
somewhere,
first
right?
movie that he's a big old puss.
Did we?
Yeah, we did. He didn't do anything.
Jeez Louise. Anyway, when she leaves the dorms, she's mobbed by news reporters. Over in Randy's film theory class, all the students have a philosophical conversation about how life imitates art. And the teacher asks, are you suggesting that someone is trying to make a real life sequel? And then they start talking about sequels. And the scariest part of this whole scene is how thin Sarah Michelle Gellar's eyebrows were in the 90s. Like, man, they were barely there. Did you notice this?
I did
I mean,
not.
it's just the 90s, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that
no
was
one had
the
eyebrows.
vibe.
Times have
Yeah.
Let's
changed.
look.
I was just
I mean,
stoked to see her. SMG,
one thing
baby.
I don't like is when she's like, you've got a hard on for Cameron, because he says that like Terminator 2 and Aliens are two of the best movies ever made, and I'm like, yeah, they are. They
Yeah.
are two of the best movies ever made.
Not hard to have that.
There was also some weird trivia that I was trying to make sense of and I couldn't. So maybe you guys can help me here.
I know the
But-
one you're talking about, Tim.
Okay, there's a line where we have Jamie Kennedy, kind of actually him, where he's just like he quotes the line from Aliens 2 about like
Stay
"Get
away
the
Stay away
bitch."
from her, you bitch. Yeah.
Stay away from her or whatever. And then he's like, actually, he says, get away from her. And supposedly the line he corrects is
wrong.
incorrect.
Yes,
Yeah.
they fucked that up somehow. Because it is "Get away from her, you bitch." It's not.
I think
"Stay away
Joshua
from her."
Jackson said the wrong line.
No, it's from
Oh.
what I understand, Joshua Jackson said the right thing, and then Randy corrected it with the wrong thing.
But I think Joshua Jackson was supposed to say "get away from her," but he said "stay away from her."
Got
and
it.
they just
And so then he
maybe
just fucked
that's,
it.
Set?
that's how I. But like, why wouldn't you just reshoot
Hmm.
that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think they
I
probably
don't
knew
know.
Maybe
this.
Randy doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
It was
Yeah.
it was very confusing when I yeah.
Yeah.
I just wrote it off as film class being just insufferable. And
It was
people
the
trying to
90s,
correct
man.
everybody.
It was the '90s, man.
I just don't like it
Uh,
because Randy's built up to be like the movie
The
guy
guy.
that's
Yeah.
supposed to.
Yeah.
But the
know
line is
everything.
"Get away from her, you bitch." Right? That is the iconic line from that section of the movie. I'm gonna get away from her, milk mommy. God.
No one's ever said that.
I'm happy
There-
we're here.
Does it come
Just-
up? Does it come up?
Just to put this into perspective, this scene always reminds me of a scene I had in college. I was in a film class that's very much like that, where the teacher was like, "And go," and then they had a big discussion. And in the I wasn't participating because I wasn't that kind of student, but just sitting off to the side,
Thank
I was
you.
observing.
Thank you, James.
I was observing, and I remember one of the students, a Randy type, brought up The Princess Bride, and then
Great film.
and then the Sarah Michelle Gellar equivalent said, "Don't spoil it. I haven't seen it yet." And I just remember thinking, at this point, it's probably 2004, and I was like, "You don't get to ask that anymore." Like of The Princess Bride, which again isn't really like, it's not like M. Night Shyamalan's Princess
there's no
Bride. Like
spoilers,
there's
man.
nothing to spoil, so you don't get to just ask that a plot point from this movie that's been around for 30 years like is spoiled for you. I guess 20 at the
Hilarious.
time.
I'd like to argue there is that one thing that they can spoil. It's a big deal.
About Dread Pirate Roberts.
Oh, come on, don't
Boom!
spoil
I
it.
did it.
There it
Boom!
is.
I did it.
There it is.
Easy.
He did it.
It is
He
a
has
great
no
level
fear.
twist. I thought you were gonna
just-
say they
you
spoiled
just
the
made
fact that-
Milk Duds shitless.
That woman who is in my film class in Chapel Hill, North Carolina in 2004-ish or whatever. I hope you're watching. Dread Pirate
Damn.
Roberts is a mantle that's passed on and passed on.
So cool. Just like Tim Geddes. Except it's the third Tim Geddes. We also get introduced here in the scene to Randy's new goatee and sideburn combination, which I absolutely hate. And
The amazing.
who
It was
has
the
the same-
90s.
That it was like a stepping stool into the 2000s. What he had going on right there, and I
God,
loved
it was
every second of
terrible.
it.
And we also get introduced to
great.
Timothy Oliphant's haircut, which apparently has just been the same since the 90s. But Tim, when something's perfect, you don't fucking change it.
Shout out to
Um,
Timothy Oliphant, man. Every single
Love
look
him.
he gives in this movie, I'm like, yeah,
Great.
you did it.
Yep.
Great.
You earned your
Fantastic.
paycheck.
Sydney tells Randy it's all happening again, but he tries to calm her down. He's like, shit just happens in the movies. She's like, that's a terrible excuse. And then Jerry O'Connell comes over
Before you get there, I have two things. One, I want to tell you about our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by HBO Max. If you're here, you probably love video games, but sometimes we have to face the cold, hard truth. We can't game all the time. Sometimes we got to kick back and watch some movies and some TV too. So it's a good thing HBO Max is here to save the day with all of your favorite DC content. HBO Max has an expansive superhero collection to feed your fandom. Greg Miller is stoked, of course. They've got Wonder Woman, they got Justice League, Stargirl, Batwoman, HBO, Shazam, Suicide Squad. The list goes on, of course. Plus, the streaming platform lets you download your favorite titles and take them with you on the go. All the bingeable collections handpicked by humans, not robots. Personally, I've been enjoying a whole bunch of different things over on HBO. I love all the day and date releases. We know we got The Matrix now coming out in December. That's really exciting to look forward to. We got Malignant. I'm about to watch that this weekend. Check out some of the best superhero content and so much more only on HBO Max. Get streaming today by going to hbom.ax/kindafunnydc. That's hbom.ax/kindafunnydc. Next up, shout out to Rooster Teeth's Last Laugh Season 2. I was a huge fan of Season 1, mainly because my boy Alfredo was in it, but Season 2, can't wait for it. Here's the whole pitch for it. Do not laugh. It's part game show, part social experiment, 100% evil laugh challenge, spectacular. Last Laugh returns for a second season with 12 contestants gathered for 6 hours to see who literally laughs last. If they laugh, smile, or smirk, they're eliminated and prevented from dethroning season 1 champion, the homie, Blaine Gibson. The host of the show, Jeff Ramsey and Elise Willems. So that's super awesome. They have a new collection of surprises, but will there be enough to break the contestants? We'll have to find out. Last Laugh Season 2 debuts September 9th on Rooster Teeth, but you can catch up on all of Season 1 right now. And 2, I have a fact about this that is really funny to me, and I thought it was weird watching it. I'm happy there is a semi-explanation for it. There's a scene earlier on in the movie when Sydney confronts Randy as they're walking to class about the killings on campus and how it's all happening over again. At that point, Randy inexplicably switches to an English accent for the rest of the scene. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah. he's like,
No.
"Oh,
Because
oh,
it
no.
was
Oh no.
it was really weird, and he does it. It's for more than just a couple words. So in a recent podcast, as of a couple years ago, Jamie Kennedy burst into laughter when he watched the scene and admitted he had no reason why Randy would suddenly switch accents like that.
God,
That's the Jamie Kennedy we all know.
Yeah.
Jamie Kennedy experience,
I have
guys.
a reason. The reason is he was portrayed by Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah.
What more reason could you want? Jerry O'Connell looking great in this movie. Very, very love seeing him and stuff. Comes over and gives her a little smooch. Then we see Gail Weathers, and she is back, and she has a new camera guy named Joel. Hey,
Just
what
has a new
happened to-
hairdo. That's
New hair.
terrible.
Every movie is a new style, a new do.
Terrible, Joey.
What?
Is the
You don't like
absolute
this
correct
one?
word.
You don't
This-
like the hair
listen.
with the streaks?
No.
Listen,
She looks
It's
like
the
she looks like Rufio.
She does look like Rufio. Yeah.
Great. Or she looks like Norman Osborn from the comics.
yes, like her tiger striped hair. It's
Yeah.
not
Ugh.
great. It's not great. I'll say that. But you know what? The '90s, not exactly the era of fashion and hairstyles that we all yearn for these days.
Speak for yourself.
But I'll tell you, I speak for yourself. Anyway, we get introduced to Joel, the new camera guy. Hey, what happened to your last camera guy? Oh, Kenny, we used his blood to clean our windshield. At that point, I would have been like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. But apparently, Joel doesn't read books. He has no idea what happened to Kenny. But he will figure that out as the story goes on. And then Aunt Jackie comes over and tries to schmooze Gail. And it'll be a cold storm in hell when you pull a fast one on Weathers. You know what I mean? She's not taking any of this, Tim. She's like, get the F out of here, Aunt Jackie. And Tim, if you're wondering why I'm calling her Aunt Jackie, it's because she played Aunt Jackie for a very, very long time in Roseanne.
There we go. There we go.
There it is.
Yeah.
And never did anything else. I don't remember. Maybe
She's the
no, that's
mom
not
of
true.
Lady Bird.
I would say, hold
She's
on,
Papa
Lori,
Lady Bird.
Lori,
How
Lori
could you? How
Metcalf
dare?
was
okay,
robbed
everyone.
of an Oscar for her performance in Lady Bird, and that's it. Yeah.
And for Scream
Yep.
2.
Mhm.
She's great.
Was
Never
she not,
forget.
I'm sorry. At least was she nominated for an Oscar for Scream 2?
No, no.
Yes, yes.
But she was robbed.
It was wild. It was a real wild card year that they pulled that name out of the hat.
Didn't have a lot going on that day. Let's see. Gail asks the police chief if they think the murderers are happening again, and then Sydney spots her. And I like this part because everyone just starts it's like she's asking all the questions. Everyone stops and they're just kind of like paying attention to her to get all the good scoops because they all revere her, including Deb Starr, I think is her name, or Storm, something like that. What's that? Salt. That's what it is. Thank you. And then Ellen's wife and the Noxzema girl come over to make sure Sydney is invited to their Delta Llama party. And I could have sworn, I was like, oh my God, Rebecca Gayhart's in this movie. She's the killer. She's absolutely the killer.
No,
You're thinking of Urban
You're
Legends.
thinking of Urban
man.
Legends.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep.
I got to the end of this movie and I was like, motherfucker. She's not the killer. That's so weird. Because I remember it was like, I was like, I think it's Timothy Oliphant and Laurie Metcalf. But I was like, then I saw Rebecca Gayheart. I was like, oh, she was a killer in one of these fucking movies. And that wasn't the one with Sarah Michelle Gellar, right?
No,
No, that
that's
had
the
Tara
one
Reid.
you did last summer.
Who was the lead in that?
Urban
movie?
Legend has Tara Reid.
Tara Reid.
But it's also Kevin Williamson, isn't it? Isn't it?
I don't recall.
Isn't that also?
Is that the guy with the fish hook? Or is that I Know What You Did Last
That's
Summer?
I know what
Summer.
you
That's
did.
Summer,
Yeah.
God, this is too hard. Anyway, Sydney spots a
No,
dumbass across the lawn who's lost and realizes it's Dewey. And here's the first time we get the amazing theme from Broken Arrow, once again starring John Travolta, Christian Slater, and
Fantastic.
Samantha Mathis. Of course, Tim, you'll remember Broken Arrow for being the movie that reunited Christian Slater and Samantha Mathis after they did Pump Up the Volume.
Got it.
Well, and if I recall, were
Great
they
reference.
not both at the Viper Room the night that River Phoenix died?
Phoenix
Nick?
died?
Ooh, wow.
I do not know that piece of trivia, but if you
I don't,
just pulled that out, that is
I don't know if
amazing.
Christian Slater was there. I mean, she was dating River Phoenix at the time.
Was
Do
she
you think
really?
Christian Slater
Yeah.
killed River Phoenix outside of the Viper Room?
We need to move on.
Okay.
Okay. Dewey reminds Sid that there is some psycho trying to follow in Billy Loomis's footsteps, and she's like, she probably already knows that, or them, he says, because it could be two killers this time. Remember, I don't remember. And then Dewey tells her he's gonna hang around and make sure she's safe, and she's like, "You got lost just now in an open field.
Yeah.
You don't make me feel." any
Also
better."
noted, he's got a bit of a limp.
He
He's got a
does,
limp.
which they explain because someone asks him later, why do you have a limp? You got stabbed in the
Randy, he said
shoulder.
nerve damage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nerve damage.
Yeah, and it comes into play later in the film.
It does.
Everything, they're just little seeds. What they do is they just sprinkle the seeds, and then they root, and then by the end of the film they grow, and maybe one of them's important.
Blossom.
Gail pulls another fast one on Sydney and tries to get her to reunite with Cotton on camera, and he seems, at this point, like he seems like actually kind of a nice guy. I hope he stays that way the rest of the movie. Sydney punches Gail out, and then Cotton's very disappointed to learn that Gail lied to him about them having an official interview. And you're like, good for you, Cotton. Stand up for your
Yeah.
principles.
Yeah, good for you.
Is there a movie or a role where Liev Schreiber isn't like always? Isn't he just always kind of creepy in movies?
Sabretooth. He was great in that.
Yes.
Very straightforward. Not
Very
creepy.
great.
Manchurian Candidate.
Do you
Because I
watch
feel
Ray-
like he's just
do
always
you watch Ray
creepy.
Donovan?
No.
Pretty good in
Should
that.
I?
He's the lead character. Yeah, he's like a fixer. Morally ambiguous, but a good guy, stand-up
I
guy.
don't think that refutes Joey's
The
point,
question.
though. I think it just reinforces it.
I'm going through a lot of the episodes that I recall from Ray Donovan, and I think Joey's spot on. I'm kind of backpedaling
okay,
this now in my
gotcha.
brain. Gail spots Dewey and tries to make up with him for calling him a dimwit in her book, and the heat between these two is fucking hot enough to cook a porterhouse. Day turns to night, and then we get another really bad Dave
It's a really
Matthews
great
song.
scene where he's just like so self-aware of like, maybe I'm like just trying to pretend like he's playing this all so like cerebrally. It's like, Dewey, are you really putting that much thought into
Yeah.
it? But I like that you've used these last 4 years or however long to like come up with this. You know that this is what him in the shower, like, what am I gonna finally say to Gail when I interact with her? And I love that about him.
Joey, I love that line that he says. He's like, maybe I just want people to think that so I can come in unassuming and like,
Mhm.
Yeah,
okay.
sure, Dewey. Bung, 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 bung.
We get a really bad Dave Matthews Band song here, or as some of the kids like to call it, DMB, which I personally still have never heard of before, but apparently that's a thing. And we go off to the Delta.
Is that the one bone you have to pick with them that you teased earlier?
Huge bone.
You
Huge
ever-
bone I
Okay.
have to pick.
You're not even concerned with the fact that they sprayed shit out of their RV over all those people. You
In
don't care about
Boston,
that.
right? Or Chicago?
Wherever they were driving around in their tour bus, and then they launched shit out of it, and then they got in trouble from
I think it was over the Chicago River. So,
Yeah.
so there
that's
was a
it.
boat.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's
it.
it.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you think
Depending
that's
on
a
who you ask,
button?
they've been launching shit on people for decades.
How
God,
dare
yeah.
you, Dave? We may not have invented time machines, but at least we have Dave Matthews Band's music because
Why? 'Cause it just transports
because
us
when
back
you
to-
listen to it, you're not in the present. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
that's
With the
for
kind
fucking
of
sure.
pull that Kind of Funny has, Dave Matthews could be on Games Daily any week.
kidding
now.
me?
We have no idea.
You got to get a
can't-
camera. Get a camera on his feet. Watch next time he perform. Next time, I'm just gonna address everyone watching directly. Next time you see Dave Matthews live, watch his feet while he plays guitar.
What does that
That's
mean?
entertaining. It's a delight.
Okay.
Next
Now
up,
I feel
I'm
like I
what
need to
bargained for
Google
on that.
Dave Matthews' feet, but I don't feel like
We're gonna
I
have to wait
God.
until we don't have time for everyone to Google Dave Matthews' feet. Just trust me on this one. Put a little PS. Make a notepad right now, or set a reminder for the end of this podcast. Go look at Dave Matthews' feet when he plays guitar. Nick,
right now,
what
sir.
happened next?
Hold on. Feet. It's there.
Oh,
It's queued
God.
up. I'm gonna look
All
at that
right,
later.
take
I'm
us
gonna
to the
look at it.
sorority
concerned
house.
that maybe Dave Matthews is gonna have a better wiki feed score than he does.
No. I want to make sure I watch this thing so I have context for more ammunition for the next time I bring Dave Matthews up, which will probably be next week because the other one was made in the 90s as well. I'm sure there's more DMB songs there. Anyway, I digress. We go over to the Delta Lambda party while over at the Omega Beta Zeta house. Sarah Michelle Gellar is watching some late night TV because she's the designated driver for the sisters, and she gets a call from Ghostface and says, "Do you want to die tonight, Joey?"
Wow.
Cece is her name, and then.
See, you want to die, Joey?
She hangs up and calls her friend, who is voiced by Selma Blair. Randomly,
Oh,
Okay, all right.
I was like, I saw her in the little
Cruel
thing, and I was like,
Intentions.
"Oh,
Who isn't this? This
So
was
good.
our Brat Pack.
it was our Brat Pack, and they're very not memorable." Then she hears a noise upstairs, and at this point, I would just leave the house. I'm like, I don't give a
Yeah,
fuck.
I know.
I'm out.
Walk outside.
People are getting killed. I'm gone. But she doesn't. And then Donnie interrupts her and freaks her out and then asks her, answers the phone and tells Cece it's Ted. But guess what? It's not really Ted. And on the way out, she goes, "Don't forget to set the alarm." And we see Ghostface in the background. He's like, jazz hands, and then leaves. And then she's on the phone, and there must be, but by the way, we see that Ghostface is not on the phone or hasn't like a cell phone. So we're like, oh, there's got to be two killers because he's on the phone right now. But whatever. "Don't forget to set the alarm, Cece." And then just leave. Donnie, still probably in the driveway. You just, hey, hold on, wait up for me. There's a fucking guy in here. We got to call the cops. Anyway, she doesn't do that. She goes upstairs instead. Instead of that, she checks all the doors and all, and sets the alarm and all that shit, and then proceeds to check the entire house until Ghostface chases her up the stairs and stabs her a bunch of times in the spine, and then throws her off the third-story balcony.
But
Over
she
at the
did that
Delta.
stunt herself. She did. I read that.
Oh, really?
Not the hitting of the ground, though.
Yeah, it's just getting thrown.
The throw it. Yeah.
Good for her.
Still impressive. I wouldn't have
yeah.
expected that.
Yeah, I like this. I like this scene a lot because it feels very Scream. It feels very traditionally Scream to me. I think it's because it's Ghostface in a house chasing, a woman, which is all I really want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pretty much all you're going to get for the rest of this. The Delta Lambdas give Sydney the hard sell, and Timothy Oliphant tries to hit on Haley, but the party gets interrupted when the news of the Omega Beta Zeta killing makes the rounds. Everyone runs over to the as Red Right Hand fades right back in again, and Sydney realizes it is in fact happening all over again. Aunt Jackie is also making the round. She gives Gail shit, but Gail also realizes it's happening again, and Dewey gives her shit for it. And her camera guy Joel tries to back out, but Monica tells him that the same thing she told Chandler after they banged in Vegas that first time: "Do not fuck with me. Now go get your camera," is what she tells Joel. Sydney gets a call that night at Delta Lambda, and for some reason answers the phone, despite the fact that this is not her sorority house whatsoever. And it's Ghostface, and he immediately, you want to talk about fucking expectations here. I'm like, oh, we're gonna build up again. No, he just jumps right back out and starts attacking her. I'm like, oh my god, you're in that house too. How close are these houses together? Or are there 4 of you this time? What's going on? How many killers are there? Jerry O'Connell sees her outside and then runs around, and they meet up outside. He goes, "I'm gonna go in there and kick this guy's ass." She's like, "No, don't go." And then he gets cut in the arm. And then Dewey
we don't see it. We see him chase down Ghostface.
Yes.
And then he goes, "Ow, my army!" And then when we see him, he's got a towel on his arm, and he goes, "He got away." So suspicious.
Fucking dope theme song
Pretty
plays. You're like, yeah.
And we don't know. Let's see. Dewey runs in just in time, but chases the guy out. And then we see the Noxzema girl and the sister from Arrested Development one more time. And they're like, "What's happening in our house right now?" And I'm like, "Are you the fucking killer from this one? Or are you the one with the hook?" They all blend together. Mickey tries to comfort Sydney, but somehow she knew this was coming. Is it because the first movie did so well financially? Question mark. And the answer is yes, Tim. Mickey tells her that the 90s are no time to be a hero. Why would anyone go back inside that house anyway? And the music cue hits, and Sydney's like, "Oh my God, Derek might be the killer. It is happening all over again, but he's got a great tan. And let me tell you, it looks fucking fantastic with the shirt off. So, whatever." Then Dewey accuses Derek of being the killer. So Derek naturally accuses him of being the killer. And then we're all like, I mean, I say you made me. You got to say you made me, right?
Well,
Batman.
wasn't it Randy? It's Randy and Dewey, right? Randy
No,
and Dewey
there's
start yelling at each other.
I think this is the part in the well, I
The
had
coffee
Dewey.
shop.
No, this is the,
You're thinking of when Randy and Dewey are talking, and Randy says, "Well, if I'm a suspect, then you're a suspect."
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
yeah, this is the part where everyone's starting to accuse each other. I was making a Batman reference there. It didn't hit. We'll move on. Gail and Dewey realize the names of all the victims spell out other victims using some sort of weird fucking ass backward math on the chalkboard. She's like, "Well, Phil's last name was this, and Maureen's last name was Sydney's mom, and Cece means nothing."
Yeah,
That doesn't mean anything whatsoever.
there's a lot of stuff here going off what Elise was talking about. There being like a script, and then it changed a lot over time because there was leaks in the early days of the internet that kind of like spoiled like key moments. So they had to like be a little more creative with some things, which led to weird decisions like that. But yeah, CC originally was going to be named something else that was a little more on the nose, to be clear about like what it was referencing. And there's a lot of cases where this movie had such a rush schedule of just getting completed in 1 year after the sequel, because it got greenlit like the weekend or whatever that Scream 1 was a success. So the script kept being rewritten, sometimes day of shooting. So like there's a lot of moments where like even big reveals don't necessarily add up. So that's an example of it.
Sydney tells Derek to stay away for her so she doesn't get hurt, but Derek can't help but wonder if she suspects him of being one of the killers. And she says, "I just don't want to see you get hurt. If I were Derek, I would leave the state at this point. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't." Gail tries to get in better with Dewey and tells him to smile, and you can tell he kind of wants to, right, a little bit. He kind of holds back a little bit, and this is one of those things where I think it's largely due to David Arquette's keen acting prowess.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
I like that you can't even get through saying that with a straight face.
Undeniably entertaining in this movie, watching David Arquette, though, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dewey's
Yeah.
a highlight of all these
Yes.
movies.
At
I
this point,
agree.
where they were married, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or they were
Yeah.
together.
Or they were at least
Yeah.
together. So
Yeah.
you can tell that there. You got Courtney Cox has a couple moments where she smiles at him, and you're like, "Oh, that's just you're breaking the fourth wall there," and I don't care. And Jackie
Before
tells
watching these, I was like, they're a weird pairing. But after watching these movies, I'm like, I kind of like
makes sense.
their vibe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Listen,
Yeah.
sometimes people just want to date someone who's goofy and shorter than them. It's fine. Aunt Jackie asks about Dewey, but Gail tells her that Dewey is a good guy, unlike some of us. And then Jackie tells everyone else that maybe Dewey is the killer. And this is where Gail starts to turn here and be like, "Oh, you know what? I've done this all wrong." Sydney joins her friends for lunch, and Derek pulls a Top Gun on her and sings "I Think I Love You," while
love
frat boys
this.
tuck $1 bills into his pocket. Somebody even says Top Gun. They're like, "He's doing a Top Gun." And I'm like,
Right.
no, that is incorrect. Okay.
It's the wrong song.
100% the wrong song. And this is the question I have for James, right? James, you and I, of course, love Top Gun.
We do.
Can someone pull a Top Gun if you're not singing the song from Top Gun? Because here's my point. If it's not
Yeah.
that, then you're pulling a 10 Things I Hate About You. not
But
a
had
Top
that
Gun.
movie come out yet?
Well, I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, I know what you're saying. It's definitely a different. Part of what I think makes a Top Gun is that everyone joins in,
Or singing.
and it becomes it's
an energy.
less embarrassment and more kind of scary.
Yeah. Like, come on, man.
A Top Gun. I think a Top Gun ultimately has to be really frightening for the intended target.
It's like a group of men in a public place gaslighting a woman with song.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a Top
And she
Gun.
can't say no
This
because
is-
they put her on the spot.
This is
Yeah.
more like a 10 Things I Hate About You, which again
With the
hadn't
step.
been established, but
Yeah.
like it's a I'm going to embarrass myself for the sake of you feeling maybe a little more
It's
comfortable
a
with
flash
me.
mob.
It's a
grand
flash.
gesture.
It's a single person flash mob.
And if there's
It's just a
anything
flash at that
sad
point.
It's just a
than
flasher.
flash mob.
Yeah.
Thank you. James. I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. Let's see.
I don't know if you read this, Tim, but I saw that it was originally supposed to be Mickey singing this to Haley, and it was supposed to be I Will Always Love You.
I did not see that. Interesting.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Again, who knows how accurate any of this
So
is.
you got to change it in the script on the day of. They said, Jerry, I hope you know some lyrics.
Sing something.
Yeah.
Interesting. I Think I Love You, which, by the way, it's credited to the punk band, the punk version of this, which I was like, that seems weird that they credited to that, which they end up playing at the end of this movie, because that makes sense there. But right here, I'm like, there's another version of I Think I Love You, which is the classic song, but whatever.
Yeah.
Let's see. Then Derek gives his Greek letters to Sydney. The music here that plays reminds me of Baywatch for some reason. Tori Spelling is cast to play Sydney, and David Schwimmer plays Dewey.
Which I love.
Oh, right. And we get a recreation from the first Scream where Luke Wilson plays Billy, and Luke
Which
Wilson
is also
just
great.
Seems so good.
hamming it up.
Which I
Yeah.
love this. I
Hair.
love this because the idea is that someone knew about that scene. It was a quiet moment that transpired between Sydney and Billy, but
never told
somehow
anyone.
someone knew every line that they spoke to one
Unless-
another.
We talked about this yesterday, but unless there was like a police report after where they asked Sydney, like, well, what interactions did you have with Billy in the days leading up? And she said, well, I was at the school. And
At the exact.
And he
Right.
said this, and I said
They're
this
trying to piece
exactly.
together.
And he made me feel really shitty about not wanting to have sex. And yeah, he was super greasy at the time. Yeah. Can we also talk about how well they did to cast Jerry O'Connell as the new boyfriend? Because he's still a handsome '90s guy, but Skeet Ulrich is such a filthy.
He's clean cut.
Yeah, Skeet Ulrich is such a filthy. Like they basically look like the same coin, but one is the scratched up Two-Face side.
Yeah,
Definitely. Randy and Dewey sit down to get some 31 flavors, and man, I'll tell you what, right now. Come on, Tim. What are you doing this weekend? Let's go get some 31. Get some gold medal ribbons.
Baskin Robbins there. they said, "Hey, meet me at Baskin Robbins."
And then Randy goes through the rules of a sequel. He says, number 1, the body count is always bigger. Number 2, the death scenes are always much more elaborate, more blood, more gore. And number 3, and then Dewey interrupts him. He just wants to find the killer. So off they go through the suspect list, and they realize here are the suspects of this movie so far: Derek, Mickey, Randy, Dewey, Haley, Aunt Jackie, Gil Weathers, and maybe Sydney. Who knows? Everyone is a suspect. Joel tries to back out.
I gotta say, with all that setup, this is kind of like my disappointment with the movie. I feel like this doesn't live up to those like rules that well. Like, I don't actually know if the kill count's higher or whatever, but I don't think that the kills in this one are more memorable or bigger, with the exception of maybe the first, like the theater one. But like, the theater one doesn't hold it.
Door kill.
Exactly. And the theater doesn't hold a candle to the opening of the first movie, you know? So it's like, it's kind of interesting.
To me, again, the theater one's memorable, but not for the right reasons. It's memorable because it got parodied. And that's the thing I remember. Remember?
The penis.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about her death in the.
Yeah, that one I don't remember at all. In fact, when I got into this, I was like, does Jada Pinkett die in this or not? And then she dies, and I was like, oh, I guess she does. Let's see. Over in the news play area, Joel tries to quit on account of what happened to Kenny, but Gail tells him to cowboy up. Sydney tries to quit the school play, but the bad guy from Time Bandits tells her, he's like, you got to use that energy. And also, I don't have an understudy for this. And it's like, well, maybe you should do your fucking job right, Professor McGillicuddy or whatever your name is. So they start rehearsing. And
then they proceed to rehearse what is the most elaborate play that has ever been put on at a collegiate level. It is my God, the amount of money that they spent to just rehearse this one scene is extravagant. It blows my mind. I also love that this very pretentious director thought that it was a good idea to also just have a score run it. Like normally when you're performing a play, you don't rely on a backing track to really catch the tone of the scene, but they do, and it's a thing for sure.
Do you think that he knew that he was going to be in Titanic, which is also referenced in this movie when he filmed this?
Maybe.
He guy's like, if I do this, I'll get the part.
He's like, I got 2 big ones come out the same weekend, and then they went, uh-oh.
Man, that guy crushed it this summer, right? He made some residuals that year.
James Cameron, please don't hold this against me. The views in that film do not reflect how I feel about this one.
Of course, the scene they're rehearsing right now is everyone stabbing her, and in and amongst all the fray and all the craziness and chaos, she spots Ghostface, and then she starts to freak out, and he's got a real knife. She's like, so she bolts. And again, guess we should have had an understudy, I guess is the message of this scene. Derek comes, and Sydney tells him she needs to be alone. She needs some distance, and basically breaks up with him a little bit here, and he's like, all right. And then Gail goes through the patterns of what's happening so far with Dewey and Randy, so they can try and get ahead of what the killer or ahead of the killer. And Joel is like, I just don't want any part of this. And at this point, I'm like, proud of you, Joel. Proud of you. Stand up for this because you are definitely gonna die. Like, you haven't had enough screen time to make it through the end of this thing. Then Ghostface calls and Randy answers. So Gail and Dewey run around like idiots looking for someone on the cell phone. And this scene is comically bad and incredibly entertaining.
The people that they identify as like I get it. It's anyone with a phone, but it's like, it's like a young woman having a picnic with her friends, and then like it's it's just like the least suspicious.
Guy hiding in the shadows in the trench coat.
The only one is the one that Dewey goes at 9:00, and then Gail goes, my 9:00 or your 9:00, and then Dewey with a lot of tone goes, your 9:00, and I'm like, well, how would I know? Well, you're an idiot.
Again, this is the guy that got lost in grass.
Yeah.
Randy talks a lot of shit about Billy Loomis and then immediately gets dragged into the news van and stabbed to death while a random group of people playing really loud hip hop music on a boombox walk by conveniently to cover up the sounds of his brutal murder.
90s.
Walk by.
Tim, you don't understand because you were barely a zygote in the 90s, but me and James did this shit all the time. We would just get together and be like, did you bring the boombox? I'm like, I brought a
Yeah.
boombox. Well, guess
I got
what?
a
We got
kaboom
two
box.
boomboxes now.
Yeah,
We're going to play the same song.
Yeah,
Double the
you-
boom.
Mr.
Gotta love it.
Boombastic.
You want to walk and dance? Do I ever?
So, Randy, who saw this coming, right?
Not me.
This is the standout. In my
so
opinion,
bummed.
this is a standout plot point from Scream 2, is that they were like, we're getting Randy, like he was a survivor, but Randy, and it's just like kind of
No
like a
one
boom
is safe.
No one is
Yeah.
safe, except for everyone else.
It's like
But then-
I would have much preferred they kept Randy. Like Sydney, I can do without Randy though. Like I love that he's the
Well,
rules guy.
Yeah,
But
that's-
we're not done with Randy. This is what makes the third one such a delightful cartoon, is that
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Sydney gets an instant message from someone in the library telling her she's gonna die, and the police escort tell her, "Hey, don't worry about it, Sydney. It's probably a joke." To which I would turn around and be like, "It's most
Excuse
definitely
you?
not
Yeah.
a fucking joke. Like,
But
who are
these-
you assholes?"
These two police escorts are maybe my favorites. They're like Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Idiots.
And we get to the scene later in the library,
Mm.
which you can truly see their incompetence on display. It's
Yeah,
a
they're
delight.
just looking at everyone's computer. Like, what's on your computer?
Well, they
Okay,
basically take her and they put it. If we can get to, we want to get to it.
We'll get
Or
to
we
it. Yeah. So we get to the part with Cotton, of course. Cotton, where he pops around the corner, he's like, "Can I have a word with you?" And she's like, "No, absolutely not. Like, I'm being hunted by a madman." And he's like, "Okay, we got a Diane Sawyer interview. This is a huge opportunity." And she's like, "I don't want to do this." And then Cotton gets very aggressive with her. And so much for him being a nice guy. You were wrong, Nick, from Act 1. The cops arrest him and take him to the captain. Oh, you want to talk about the scene here in the
I
library?
was going to talk about the library a little bit because one of the guys, she gets that message. Number 2, she doesn't know how to work a computer. she's like, there's like a point where she goes like, "Hey, what is this?" And then the person sitting next to her is like, "That's a screen." Like she like asks like the dumbest question. But in the first movie, she knew how to call 911 using the internet. So like something happened. She just, I think the trauma or whatever, she really
hit the head
lost
a lot.
traction. But either way, when things go off the wall, her 2 bodyguards, one of them like immediately starts hunting around, and then the other one says, "Here, wait by this emergency exit access wall where you can totally be surprised from behind. In fact, there may be someone in the stairwell right now. I'm going to run off in this direction." And then while she's being harassed, no one returns until he literally like shouts in the library, and then all of a sudden they're on him. And they're like, we got the guy. It is the best. They're the best.
Hilarious. Let's see. The cops arrest him and take him to the captain, who tells him, "You gotta watch your mouth, buddy." As right outside, Sydney, Haley, and Dewey watch him get interrogated, which seems kind of awkward and maybe unprofessional. Everyone is super bummed about Randy, and Cotton gives Gail the what for about all how he's just been mistreated. They decide, of course, to take Sydney to a safe place while also implementing a campus-wide curfew, which I didn't catch the first time, and I was like, that explains why there's literally no one on the campus past like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But I get it. Everyone is, let's see, Gail leaves the police station, and the other reporters rush her for the first time, and now she's become the story, which, Tim, of course, you'll know from our journalist backgrounds, never become the story. Always report on the story. She tells Aunt Jackie to back off now that she's on the other side of it, and she's like, "I feel bad and just want to find this fucker." And Dewey's all like, "And you had me at this fucker. Let's go. We're back in. I'm back in with you." Also, Joel quit. And good for you, Joel. You were totally going to die. Gail gets the bright idea to go through all of Joel's crowd footage. This is, you want to talk about convenient writing here?
Yeah.
He drops his camera bag. He's like, "I'm done with this shit." Because I know if I hang out until Act 3, I'm getting stabbed in the fucking ear. And he's like, I'm leaving. And then Dewey's like, "What's in that bag?" And she goes, "Oh, it's Joel's camera and all of the crowd footage that he had from all of the stuff, like all the B-roll of crowds." Whatever. Let's go take that to the next campus. Let's see. Gail, they find a VCR as the Broken Arrow theme plays once again. Tim, of course, you remember when I referenced that earlier, and James brought it up. Gail apologizes to Dewey for hurting him, and they almost start banging on the teacher's desk. But it's interrupted when a bunch of the other TVs come on and show some other behind-the-scenes footage that they've never seen before because it's taken
their
from the
footage.
killer.
Mhm.
And the final TV shows them in that same spot in that classroom. And he's like, "Oh my God, Ghostface is here. He's watching us right now. I will go find him." And Gail's like, "Don't go. The two of us are no match for these people. They've killed lots of people." Dewey goes to investigate, but no one's there. And then Ghostface just randomly pops up behind Gail. And I'll tell you what, dumb blocking scared the shit out of me.
Oh, really? Gotcha.
There's two big scares in this that actually got me. It's when Randy gets pulled into the van, that scared me. And then this one, I was like, okay, you got me on that one.
I will say at the beginning with Sarah Michelle Gellar in the sorority house when the other girl pops up,
That scared me a little bit.
got a
too.
little,
yeah.
got a little jumpy.
Got a little-
I think Randy getting pulled in the van was the only one that jumped me.
I really love how when Ghostface attacks Gail dives. She dives across a desk. And then she immediately grabs a weapon. She's like tactical. Dewey comes out from the top and without anyone doing anything to him at all, trips and stumbles down the stairs. Not pushed, nothing, no trap left behind. He just incompetently falls down the stairs.
Yes.
Love it.
Dewey, tell us again about how this is a calculated character that you
Yeah.
created.
Faster to fall.
Let's see. Gail gets chased into the music room and hides out in one of the sound booths. And then Dewey comes in, but she can't hear him. And then who's sneaking up behind you? Oh, Ghostface. And then Gail has to watch as the love of her life is stabbed to death right in front of her, and she can't do a dang thing about her. The killer tries to break through the glass, but when he realizes he can't, they ghost. We're waiting a long time to use that one, Tim.
Great. Thank you for it.
Derek says bye to Sydney so the cops can take her and Haley away to their super secret hideout, and then gets kidnapped by his Greek brothers for giving up his letters. And I'm like, I don't know. This is a situation you want to willingly put yourself into, but hey, whatever. They tie him up to that Zeus set piece in the theater and start pouring cold beers down his boxers.
Which, again, with the budget for that theater department, I don't think they'd be very happy with what's transpiring.
What's one of those things where, like, how do you get into the theater? Are these doors just unlocked in whatever this town is? Like,
I guess so.
this is a government building.
Yeah.
The car carrying Sydney and Haley gets very easily taken over by Ghostface, who very quickly kills both cops, even though one of them had an easy shot. And he's like, "Get out of the car, dude!" And it's like, what? Just shoot him. Like, what the fuck are you? Just shoot him. Like, the guy just killed your partner. You saw that. You have probable cause to shoot this guy dead. But instead, he gets run over and gets a metal spike driven through his face.
Which I do love that, he's got his face smashed in, but his last act is trying to pull that trigger. Guns, guns not pointing anywhere near him.
Yeah.
But God bless him, Yep.
Most would have just wasted a shot. Sydney and Haley are now trapped in the back seat of, and this is one of those things where I'd have been like this. I'm sorry, you want to escort me in the back of this cop car, and I can't get out of the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's how they work, though.
And I'd have been like, go get a different car. I'm
I'll
not.
say-
I'm riding in the front seat. That's what.
With you, Nick, it's not an escort.
With
That's
me,
just what they tell you.
They're like, "Sir, you don't have a choice.
You're just
Like,
under arrest. Yeah.
You said a lot of crazy things on the internet right now. We're gonna have to take you in." City notices a small hole in the dividing grate, and then they peel it back. And then I love this scene. It's all worth it for this. They have to one by one climb over Ghostface, and when she hits the horn, I'm like, "Ew."
That also got
Oh
me.
my gosh.
It does.
Drives
Now,
me
at this,
crazy.
I'm just going to give everyone a little piece of advice. If you're trapped in the car with a killer, sit on his lap and just strangle him with the.
I was gonna say, what you do is she reaches. She's like, "Oh, I need to figure out who it is," and slow and steady starts
Hold on.
reaching for the mask. Reach for the mask. Here's how you figure out how it is. You get in the back of the car, you grab onto the handle thing, and you bash the person's face with your foot, smashing it into the glass as much as possible. And then when the blood seeps through the mask, then you take it off and you go, "It looks like," and then there you go.
Just
There you
blunt
go.
force trauma to the head.
Yeah.
Like, well, and you know what, James? If you can't figure out who the person is, because his face is just a fucking bloody pulp of a mess, that's
Problem
what
solved.
fingerprints are for.
Maybe it's Craig or what's his name from the beginning that made the call.
Let's see. Love it. Haley ends up making it out, but then Sydney realizes, I got to go back. I got to figure out who this guy is. I can end this right now. But when she goes, and Haley's like, "Don't do it. Let's just get the hell out of here." And she's like, "No, I have to end this." Of course, when she goes back, no one's in the car, and the blocking here could not telegraph this more.
I
It is a
know.
wide shot with Haley standing just close enough to a stack of wood to be like, he's behind the fucking wood for sure.
Mhm.
And he, of course, is. Let's see. He jumps up behind the wood, stabs Haley in the chest a bunch of times. Gail over on the other side of campus runs into Cotton, whose hands are all bloody with Dewey, so she runs away. Gail runs right into Aunt Jackie and tells her that the killer is Cotton Weary, and she seems very, oh no, I'm very surprised by this news. And then Sydney runs back through the campus and hears the music playing in the theater. So naturally, when you're in a high stress situation, you go, I'm going to run toward the music that's happening in the theater, even though I know that shouldn't be on right now, right? Clearly, this is a trap, but I'll go toward it because there might be people in there. And then Derek falls from the rafters, unconscious. But before Sydney can untie him, Mickey pops up and reveals himself to be the killer. And he tells Sydney, he's like, don't untie him because he's my partner. And he's like, you don't know who to trust. And she's like, oh no. And he's like, no, Sydney,
Oh,
it's
no.
not. I'm not the partner. These are my fraternity brothers tied me up like this and wrote on me with lipstick, and none of this at all registers as weird. Thankfully, Mickey shoots him through the heart. And that's settled. Thank God that's settled.
This scene telegraphs a lot of Among Us games that would come several decades later, where Mickey pops up and he goes, "Where were you, man? I thought like we were gonna like." Where have you been all night? And he's like, "What are you talking about?" like Jerry O'Connell gets immediately defensive, and then his art, like he isn't able to make a case for himself because he's so pissed off that he's getting thrown under the bus.
Yeah.
He's just like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. It's not fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
It's just
And I was
like, you
that's
know
very
me
real.
argument, which is like the
Yeah.
least actually helpful argument of like,
Yeah.
that's not really how this works.
And luckily, he dies knowing that Sid thought he was the killer.
Mickey, of course, starts laying it all out here. He's like, I'm a sick fuck and I just want to get caught. I'm going to blame it all on the movies. And Cindy's like, cool, while you're doing that, I'm going to unlace Derek's Greek letter necklace and then cut your face off with it. And then they just get it on. They start tussling and she beats his ass and gets the better of him. But it's all for naught because Mickey has a gun and a knife. So he's holding all the cards here, as they say to him. Derek's dead body ascends back to the rafters, and he's like, ooh, who could be doing that? Surprise cameo. The other killer guys, none other than Aunt
Mrs.
Jackie.
Loomis.
Well, first of all,
Aunt Jackie.
first Gail walks through.
Oh,
And you're
right.
like, oh
Yeah.
shit. And then,
That
but
is
then
a
a second
twist.
later. Yeah, and then a second later.
And she says, she's like, who are you? And she's like, that's not Aunt Jackie. It's Mrs. Loomis, Billy's mother. And then, almost as if you didn't need it.
Because we didn't.
Because
Absolutely
we
not.
didn't.
Yeah.
She goes, Gail has to, like someone somewhere was like, wait,
Yeah.
Gail, surely
You
Gail
don't-
would,
you don't
throughout
look like
all
her.
of her, like, you know, research
Investigating.
into this thing, would
Yeah.
have probably seen a picture of Mrs. Loomis at some point, right? And
Yeah.
so she goes, well, that's not Mrs. Loomis. I've seen a picture of her. And Nev Campbell goes, well, yeah, maybe 60 pounds ago. And a lot of work.
The work done. Or
Very,
like,
very dismissive and a weird like passive aggressiveness too from Sydney
Look,
at
this-
this scene.
this movie is full of one-liners to explain things away, and this is another one of them.
You're right.
Of course, she is Debbie Loomis. I think that's her real name. It's Debbie Salt. Debbie. I'll just call her Deb. Recruited Mickey because of his background in serial killing, but she's not so keen on a trial and all that shit. So she just blows him away, and then she tries to shoot Gail, who like dives off into the orchestra pit. And then she's like, Mickey was out of his mind, but Debbie is very sane. Her motivation is good old fashioned revenge. The best part, she's going to blame it all on Mickey and get away scot-free. And I'm like, I don't know if that's how forensics work, but whatever. She pulls the old, isn't Mickey supposed to be dead trick? She's like, look, it's Mickey. And then fucking dumbass Deb falls for it. And then we get the weirdest scene where Debbie gets buried under scenery. She starts fighting her
Yeah,
with
that's
scenery.
great.
Yeah, she fights her with scenery.
And it's weird. And then Deb gets buried under the scenery, but you're like, they don't actually make. And Tim, I know that you've never been to the theater, so let me
Never.
explain to you how
Not
set
once.
pieces
Theater.
are made. They don't actually make real bricks out of real bricks.
Mhm.
Those would have been very light styrofoam bricks. Maybe they would have hurt, but I don't know if they would have knocked you out. Who knows?
This is another just letdown for me in this movie is like if you're going to use a set piece as tropey as a literal theater set for a horror movie in particular, like maybe I've just been spoiled over the years and stuff, but like do something cool and unique with it. I feel like this really just didn't. It's just like it is what it is. There was no like fun element of like the play happening while things are happening, whatever. It's like they like kind of just did too much at the beginning of this movie that by the time we get here, I was expecting them with some shock and awe, but nah, didn't get it.
And Mrs.
It's
Loomis pretty incompetent too. When you compare her battle with Mrs. Loomis to her battle with Billy, it's just not. It doesn't even match up.
Yeah, and there's a lot more fun missing from this one than there was with the Matthew Lillard. Like you're missing that kind of aspect from this final scene.
Of course, Sid makes her way toward the exit, and Deb pounces on her like Cheetah from Wonder Woman 1984. They tussle, and Cotton interrupts with a gun, and a standoff ensues. And Deb's like, listen, talk a little sense into you here, Cotton. Just let me kill her. She sent you to prison for a year. Personally, I think it's rather poetic. And Cotton's like, well, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. Let's take a second here and try to figure this out. Quite the predicament. And then he's like, I bet you did that. You wish you'd agreed to do that Diane Sawyer interview right now, right? Looking pretty good right now, isn't it? And then without skipping a beat, Nev Campbell's like, consider it done. And Cotton's like, cool. And then he plugs her in the chest. And I'm like, this scene, Cotton's still very much now going to jail, right?
He's still scumbag.
He could have revealed like a true, like, no, I'm not a killer kind of thing, but he was like, are you going to give me what I want or are we going to kill you? Which is weird.
Great. Let's see. Sydney gets the gun away from Cotton, and Gale comes back to life for one more scare. Of course, they're looking at Deb, and they're like, is she dead? And they always come back. And then Mickey pops up in the back, and he screams like a goddamn Muppet when they're running. He does one of these. And then so they just plug him away. And then this is the one thing I really respect about this movie. Sydney looks over at Deb and goes, you know what? And then just, boom, puts one
right
between her eyes just for good measure. Or I should
put her down.
Just in case.
Cold-blooded.
And that's exactly what I would do in one of these situations. I'd be like, are we done? Did we kill everyone? Cool. You guys go get some Starbucks. I'm going to one by one go through all the bodies and shoot them in the fucking forehead. Just in case two things happen. One, we get one more scare, or two, they turn into zombies. Those are the two.
Or a sequel.
Exactly. Gale, outside as the cops have all arrived and everything's happening. We've got some time here. And then Gale gets patched up by an EMT. And Joel comes back to get the scoop. He's like, you were right the whole time. I should have stuck around. She's like, yeah, too little, too late, fucking buddy. But guess what? Who should be coming out of that theater alive? It's Dewey. He's still alive. And Gale's like, you know what, Joe? I've had enough of your shit, Joel. I'm going with the love of my life. And she throws in with him in the back.
One of my favorite things here is they got Dewey coming in the stretcher, and you think, like, how did this guy survive this? So of course they have to have one of the paramedics ADR a line in where he goes, the knives must have hit some of the scar tissue he had.
He got stabbed in the exact same spot as last time.
But I just love that the movie was like, we have to explain.
Yeah.
Which they didn't explain last time how Dewey survived. They just got stabbed in the back.
Totally. I love all of it, and just the emphasis on Dewey and Courtney Cox is a little weird to me, where like I get that they're main characters, but like the movie ends with them in a way that like Sydney just feels like she's just, to James's point earlier, kind of here. Like she's just kind of the reason things are happening, but it's weird because she is the main character, and like the main plot is her, and then the movie ends with her not really being a part of it.
Yeah, she walks off into the grass looking like a sim.
Yeah,
just kind of like,
she's a background character. Like,
well, yeah, I mean, to your point, she doesn't really have a character arc, right? But I like this ending because it is Gale's character. Like that's the end of her arc.
It does.
Cotton's your real hero.
It does set up Scream 3 more than anything, and where Sydney's at in that one. But
of course, the reporters crowd around Sydney and they ask her what happened, and she's like, you know what? Why don't you ask Cotton? He's the one who really saved the day. Which I think, in my opinion, should get her out of the Diane Sawyer interview for sure. And everyone's like, Cotton, what happened? He's like, well, you know what? There's a prize for everything. And I'm like, this guy's a fucking scumbag. And then the camera cranes out and another really bad 90s song plays.
Love
that
it.
Sounds like the end of Baywatch.
So somewhere out there was some woman that was getting so much work doing like choral singing on top of 90s beats. And for like 3 years, it was just money every day, and then it just stopped.
Another thing I love is that when she says Cotton's the one you want to talk to, he looks like he's walking about to get into the back of the cop car, like he's like, this is how it turns out for old Cotton every time.
Yeah.
You know?
He also gives her the
nod.
Thank you nod, which is great because he just held her at gunpoint. Like he's like, it's like, hey, thanks for this. It's like you killed me almost.
Now
I was legitimately weighing the options of killing you for profit or letting you live, but thank you.
But thank you. Elise, please set us off with a little bit of that haiku and review. 7.
I was thinking of Ragu back.
Yeah.
7 syllables in the middle. Got 5 for the first and last line. If you're not poetic, don't need to fret it. Haikus are hard to rhyme.
Don't need to rhyme.
Haikus don't need to rhyme.
Yeah.
Haiku interview.
Yeah,
I
easy.
think everybody probably misses the Andy video or whatever.
Well, Randy
No,
would
I
tell
mean-
you that it's a different line
Yeah.
at that point,
Mm.
but
The thing is, anyone can be haiku in review, and you can make it your own. You make it your own. That's what it is.
Wait, James, did you just make a joke about getting Andy's name wrong as Randy
Yep.
because it kind of rhymes? Because
It
if
was
so,
genius.
that is
no, I was referencing Randy correcting the guy about the
Jackson.
Joshua
Shit is
Jackson
layered,
line.
everybody.
That joke was
Oh,
that
yeah.
joke was
Getting
layered.
real meta over here.
There's a lot
Andy
there.
and I are like a Randy or like a Joshua Jackson and
Who's him?
What's-
Don't tell me.
You can go to patreon.com/kindoffunny to write your reviews in haiku form, just like Tice Thomason did. Picture, show murders. Debbie pissed. Mickey convinced. Stop singing, Derek. Can't agree with that, Tice. Keep
Yeah.
singing.
I think we need
want
more
to
keep
singing.
Madeline, aka Mad Exposure, writes in saying, CC who? I know. Buffy the Vampire Slayer would kick Ghostface ass. That is true. That is
Good
true.
point. Good point.
And then Andrew Feister says, vilified victim, really an upstanding man, will stop their vile plan. Appreciate the
Ooh.
rhymes. Appreciate the rhymes. And finally,
Yeah,
Andrew
me-
Feisner once again coming in with a dock through the ear, maybe a knife in the head. I've seen it both ways. And then as an aside says, never forget Scary Movie killed a man with a dick. And I can assure you, none of us will ever
We will
forget
never
that.
forget that. We'll never forget that.
And since you're so prepared for it, Elise, can you kick us off with some of that ragu bagu?
I wasn't. I was trying to remember how Ragu Bagu went.
Ba-dum-bum-bum.
Oh yeah. I can't.
Ragu.
Bagu. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rad Guys Talk Bad Guys for the Scream universe right now.
I'm
number
so glad
one.
that Elise is here because it takes the pressure off of me from doing the theme songs. And it's hard, man. Andy has it down to a science and it's hard to really follow that
They're
up.
his songs,
Love it.
like Broken Arrow.
It's true. Yeah. Number one on the list for Rad Guys Talk Bad Guys is Billy and Stu and peer pressure. Where do we want to put Debbie Salt and Mickey?
Mickey,
And
D
revenge.
serial killer.
I honestly think that they are a significant step down in every single way, in terms of the kills, in terms of the mystery, in terms of the fun, like all of it. I feel like they're in number two. I do give them credit for till the very last minutes, you're still kind of questioning who it is, and that is fun. And I think that for this type of movie, that is part of what the bad guys' roles are. So it's cool. But once the reveals happen, it's a little bit more like, okay,
Yeah,
than
but
it is like, whoa, this is awesome.
I would credit them with saying that the theatrics of kicking off the murder spree at the Stab premiere or showing, that's
Yes, yes.
excellent.
Yeah.
You can't write that.
I think on paper, if you go in the first one, it's Billy Loomis because this trauma he had related to an affair that Sid's mom had that was just referenced offhand or whatever. You don't even really think about. And then this dweeb. And then you say, and in the next one, it's his mom. That sounds cooler than it's actually executed in this
Totally.
movie. And I think that's probably because they need to hide her within the film, but they make her such a kind of a dweeb, and then he is like they're like, we met on a chat. I'm like, okay, that's not really, that's just like kind of like a worse stew, and
Yeah.
so yeah, I agree.
I agree. Stu and Billy just have so much fun banter back and forth, and it's
Yeah.
really hard to compete with that
Mm-hmm.
in any sense of the way. So
Good.
I think these
All
are a
right.
strong second.
They're going to be number two on the list. Mrs. Loomis and Mickey and Revenge, number two. There it is.
And now for ranking the Scream movies, currently number one is Scream 1. I would be surprised if anyone else would put, or if anyone would put number two over number one. I definitely do not. I think the Scream 1 is better in every single way. Like, I don't think this one does anything better than the first. Still a fun time, despite not being a good movie. Joey?
Yeah, I wouldn't put this above it. I will say that the one thing I think is fun is we get all the stunt casting for Stab, and that's like the one glimmering highlight of this, with the Luke Wilson. I think it's just really fun, that one scene that he's in. But other than that, yeah, I think everything in Scream 1 is better.
agree with
Elise?
Joey. There's like those moments, but overall, like, I mean, you can't touch Scream 1.
Mhm. I agree. Again, it's a transition film into the full camp that I think will be Scream 3. So
I'm so excited.
Have you seen Scream 3, Joey?
I've seen bits and pieces, but like I don't remember what movies go with like what scenes
Yeah,
that I've
okay.
seen.
I have
Cool.
not seen 3. I can
Okay.
now,
Ooh.
having now watched 2, I can confirm I have not seen 3. I thought that
Okay.
2 was 3. So,
Mm.
All right. Good to
Yeah.
know.
and then Nick, I assume.
Yeah, no, it's a far second for sure. But
There
I'm
you
excited to
go.
watch 3.
I am very
Me
excited
too.
to watch 3, which we will do next week. Nope, that's not right. That's not right at all. We're going to do it soon. Stay tuned to the schedule and you'll understand it all. Joey always puts it up and it's clear to everybody. But I love you all. James and Lise, where can people find you?
You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, James Williams.
Elise Mullins.
You can also find us making pretty much daily content over at youtube.com/funhouse. And then also James Williams stuff.
And you can also find us, I believe, Patreon members of Kind of Funny. We have been invited back for another Snow Bike Mike movie night.
Ooh.
TBD,
Yep,
TBD date.
yep.
We're gonna figure that out
but
because sometime in
so-
the next few weeks we're gonna have the Williamses back to watch
Yeah,
some fun
so
80s
excited.
action.
And one last one, if you want to, you can find us as characters in Psychonauts 2. I don't
Yes.
have to promote the game, but I'm choosing to promote the game at any
That's
opportunity.
cool as hell.
That's awesome.
So yes.
Absolutely.
So with that, I have taken the time to look at our calendar, and I want to confirm for everybody out there what the next 2 weeks for in review schedule is. We just did this Scream 2. Later this week on Thursday, we will be doing finishing Pixar in review with our review for Soul. And then next week, we will be doing a double feature of Scream to make up for lost time. So the episode that goes live for everyone on Tuesday will be Scream 3. And then the episode that goes live on Friday will be Scream 4 to take it all home. So thank you very much for your patience and understanding with all that stuff. But that is your homework for the next couple weeks. Soul, Scream 3, Scream 4, boom. Till next time, love you all. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.